Hey, this is Derek Padula, the Dragon Ball Scholar, and in this live stream, we're going to be going over the Namekian language. I've been translating Namekian for my upcoming book, Dragon Ball Language, and I thought it would be fun to do this live stream to just hang out with you and share a little bit of what I've learned so far. So I don't have a plan for this live stream. I was just doing this work and I thought, hey, why not share this with other people? This would be a fun thing to share. So what we're looking at here is my Photoshop, and let me switch over to it so it's a little bit easier for me. In this window, I have a Namekian glyph, which is a template that I've created. I've got some guides here and a few different glyphs that I've drawn that are based off of the actual Namekian glyphs in Dragon Ball. And right now, this is one section. These are the H's, and then here are the A, E, U, A, O's that are correlated with the Japanese sounds. So the way I came up with all of these in drawing these in this template was to first look through all of the manga pages, and then I created this huge chart. Let me put this away. Filled with all of the glyphs, and this isn't even all of them, but this is maybe 100 or so, or I don't know, quite a lot. And they're categorized according to the Japanese sounds of a, I, U, A, O, ka, ki, ku, ke, ko, da, di, du, de, do, things like that. And you'll see that there's a lot of repetition in these different categories, like the sound of E here has all of these glyphs plus all of these. I ran out of space, so I actually had to create a second section just for the E's. There's a lot of them, and it's the same thing with ma here. We've got all of these glyphs that are associated with the Japanese sound of ma. So as it stands, there's no way to speak Namekian at the moment. I've been focused on learning how to read it and write it. And to do that, I first, of course, had to learn Japanese, because that's the language that Akira Toriyama writes Dragon Ball in. And it's what he associates Namekian with. So I'll go through a lot of the details of how Namekian works and the grammar of it in a bit. But basically, if you don't speak Japanese, you'll never understand Namekian, because when Toriyama was writing it, he was writing it from the perspective of a man who grew up as a native Japanese speaker. And then he wrote Namekian as an alien language in order to contrast against Japanese. And so it has a lot of grammar rules from English and other Romance languages. In particular, let's see if I can just find an example for you in the manga itself. So I'm going to bring up a page. I just happen to have it in my recent section. This is a Dragon Ball Super manga, but it's the same for all of the other, Dragon Ball manga written and drawn by Toriyama. What we have here is some Japanese text in these speech bubbles, and the text reads right to left and top to bottom. So this is saying Hitomazu. And then he's got another speech bubble here, also in Japanese, reading from right to left. And he's got a combination of hiragana and katakana and kanji. And over here we have Namekian, spoken by this young Namekian here. So you'll see these Namekian glyphs, and they read from left to right, which is how English reads. And then, of course, top to bottom. So left to right and top to bottom. And you'll notice these ellipses here, and you also notice the ellipses here. So there's a correlation between the Japanese and the Namekian. They're just sort of mirroring one another. Now, in a lot of cases, these glyphs match up one-to-one. Like you can see here, we have this, not the right size, this he over here in hiragana matches up with this Namekian glyph here. It's right before the ellipses, right? These two ellipses over here. But there's no way to pronounce this glyph because we don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced. And yeah, you can watch the anime or whatever, but in this particular case, this part hasn't been animated. If you're going to go back to the other ones, which I will do, I will compare the written glyphs with how the anime made them sound. But I haven't done that yet. So in the meantime, the only way to pronounce these is to pronounce them in Japanese. And so that means that this glyph would be pronounced he, H-I, just because that's the only way we can make a sound, right? And yeah, you could come up with some other weird nonsense if you wanted to, but that would just make things confusing. So I think it's best to avoid doing that at the moment and just focus on how to read it, basically how Toriyama wrote it. So what I would do is I would go and I would say, okay, so that sounds like he, and then I would create this category here and I would draw it in. And it's as simple as, taking the tool and then drawing some lines. And that's what I did for all of these glyphs here. And so I went through the whole manga and I found out, how many actual glyphs there are. And there's a lot. Just give you a little overview. In the Tenkaichi Budokai, the 23rd tournament, which is the first time we see Namekian used, when Kami confronts his other half, Piccolo. And according to my analysis, there are 307 Namekian glyphs. And Namekian would go on to be used in the Saiyan arc and the Namekian arc in the Dragon Ball Z portion of the series. And that would have a total of 158 glyphs. And then once again, it'd be used in the Majin Buu arc for 127 glyphs. And then, as I just showed you, it appears in the Dragon Ball Super series in the Moro arc for 93 glyphs. So in total, there's 685 glyphs used. Now, that doesn't count the unique glyphs, meaning that they only appear once. You still have to calculate that. But in total, we have 685 glyphs to reference, and that's a lot. And so I had to draw all these things, including for the kanji and specific words that are found throughout the series. Like Namekian glyphs for Piccolo are always the same, and the Namekian glyphs for Kami are always the same. And Toriyama, he keeps using the same ones. So when you see that, you see a pattern, and you recognize it, and you match it up with what you saw before, and then it all starts to make sense to a degree. Some of the manga is inconsistent, to put it politely. I don't know how much thought Toriyama really put into this. His, MO is to sort of just fly by the seat of his pants. And so what you kind of end up with is some glyphs that you find in one section, and then you find them in another section. And somehow they make different sounds, even though they're the same glyph. And that can get really confusing because in normal languages, one glyph or one character makes one sound, right? But that's not the case here. So you kind of have to. I applied the best logic I could, to every situation, but sometimes you had to play it by, by sight, I guess. And other times things don't line up one to one. Like you'll end up with 14 Namekian glyphs and 17 Japanese characters or kana. Or a kanji will be made that has, it's one kanji, but it represents 3 hiragana. So like, okay, so in that case, am I supposed to use 3 Namekian glyphs or 1? Or if it's the word like kokoro, which means heart, you have ko repeating. So should that just be 1 glyph repeated twice and then a new glyph for ro? And it gets really confusing. So you kind of just have to take it with a little bit of grain of salt. I've done my best to make sense of it. But you can see here, like I have this section for extra glyphs. They just didn't fit in anywhere else, but I still wrote them down so that, someday it might make sense. Other places I noticed some grammar, like this particular glyph here was for mo. And I think it was moto. And so the second time that the mo appeared, there was this connection here in this line, this vertical line. So rather than breaking here, it connected on the second instance. So I made a little note to myself that the second time it's used, it indicates a repetition when you have this line here. It only happened once, so I don't have another example to prove that that is the case, but it's interesting enough to take note of. So that's some basics of what I've learned so far. There's a lot more, but I don't want to talk about too much here. So what I thought I would do is just go through some Namekian with you, just to draw things out. And it can be fun to just kind of go through this together and show you how to draw Namekian. And then I'm going to export the little images, and we're going to put them into a Word document so you can see Namekian actually be used in print alongside of Japanese and English. So this is an experiment, and I just want to see the chat and see how things are going. I really have hey Josh, how you doing? Tevin, Tarano, good to see you. Hooded, nice to see you there. Cool. All right. Well, I'm glad you guys are here. Let me check my my Twitter real quick and my Facebook. I'm doing a live stream to multiple channels. Just give me a minute to see what's going on. Also, my computer is like maxed out right now trying to do all this. So I don't know how well it's going to work to have all these tabs open. But what are you guys up to tonight? Doing anything cool or anything exciting happening in your life? Okay. So nothing going on Twitter here. Also, I want to make sure you can hear me okay. If you can't, I can bring the mic closer or do something else. Okay. All right, everything looks good there. So what I'm going to do is just pick a section, and then I'll show you how to draw it out. So let's see. It's a good one to try or to start working on. Actually, no, I think I'll go with the Mo here. I think that looks pretty easy. Less straight lines. So I'm going to create a new folder in Photoshop. Mami, Mume, Mo. And again, these are the Japanese sounds. So we'll just, we'll call this one Mo 1. And then I'll select the pencil tool. And I've set this up with a 100 by 100 box. And I've put some grid lines in every 25. But there's also grid lines every 2 so that I can make sure that everything stays square. So we'll start with this one here at the very top. And I will just hold down Shift to make a straight line and connect it all the way to the other side. And then same thing down here. Now, to make this box, this is where some sort of artistic license has to be, taken in or applied. I drew these based off of what I saw in Akira Toriyama's manga. But the thing about Namekian glyphs is that Toriyama drew all of them by hand. And they are not a particular font set that you can just type in. When Toriyama wrote his words in Japanese, he would do it by hand, and then he would ink them, and then he would send them to Shueisha, and a typographer or a font expert, a typesetter, that's what I'm thinking of. The typesetter would then go in and they would apply the Japanese kana to what Toriyama wrote, like on top of it in the speech bubble. But when Toriyama wrote his Namekian glyphs, he did everything by hand, and there's no way that the typesetter can, he doesn't have all of the glyphs. So sometimes the fonts or the glyphs are a little inconsistent, they're a little sloppy, and the exact dimensions, it varies every time you see one of them. So you just kind of have to do your best to approximate it. But in this case, you can see that this first Mo, I'll zoom in a little bit so it's a little easier for you to see, is raised up from this bottom line here. So I'm going to try and emulate that and just pick a spot where I think it's best represented. I feel like this distance in the horizontal is about right. So if I place it here, where do I want it to stop? Maybe about there. Then I feel like it ends before the left edge. It's pretty good. Not perfect, but I can go back later and modify these things. But anyway, so that's Mo 1. And then what I'll do is I'll continue through with Mo 2. So I'll create a new layer. I'll let Mo 2 turn off the first layer. And then we'll go through this again. So draw that top line. Draw this bottom line here. Connect it to the middle. And then from here, I can hold down Shift and click any other point, and it'll draw a straight line going over to there. And then same thing on this side. Okay, so that's, if I zoom out, turn off the guides, that looks pretty good. Let me check the comments real quick. Okay, nothing else going on there. Let's see. So going on to the next one. Mo 3. Turn off Mo 2. And this one's going to be a little tricky because it has a curve in it. Yeah. So it's kind of a problem sometimes. The guides because of the grids, they want to go below the actual line that I'm on. Now this, I feel like, is about centered. Yeah, see, that's just not enough space. The other thing about the Namekian glyphs is like sometimes they're taller than they otherwise would be. So if, let's just draw a curve the best I can here. If I curve this down, it looks okay, but I feel like this glyph should be wider than it is taller. And it just seems a little off. So in that case, just over here. In that case, I feel like it's okay to sort of bring it up a little bit, just to be more consistent with what Toriyama did. And again, if I feel like changing my mind later, I will. But this is also me learning how to do this, and that's part of the process. I first had to figure out how to even like start creating these glyphs in Photoshop, and there was a lot of trial and error with like different size grids and things like that. And like getting the right column size and things like that. All right. It's good enough. So for this one, I'm actually going to duplicate it from 04. So I just hit Control J and hit and then I'm going to erase these curves here, because it's the same character. So we can just duplicate it, and then should be fine. Connect this line here. And this is the one I was talking about, where it's the same character, but it just adds this connection. And also this part is straight, curved, which could be an aberration caused by Toriyama's hand when he was drawing it out. Because just like with anybody's handwriting, sometimes you make things curved as you're moving your wrist around, and yeah, I have to keep my eyes open for that character again somewhere else. Okay, so I'll just do another one just to sort of finish this out, and then I'll export them, and we'll take a look in Microsoft Word. Oh, and also, of course, I made the color green because it's Namekian. And this is a color grab or eyedropper from Piccolo's skin color. So it's Piccolo green. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is let's just export this one here. The Photoshop doesn't crash on me. I'm doing a live stream. It's, for whatever reason, Photoshop's export is a taxing process. Yeah, I did it twice because okay. So okay, Photoshop is dumb sometimes. I'll try it again. All right. So I found that 40 pixels was a good size to fit within the uh, Microsoft Word without disrupting the line height. Um, so then I'll export Mo4. And Mo3, and then we'll make that word. Although I'd have to have toe as well for moto, but whatever. We can just put the Mo's together. Or I could just do toe real quick. Let me do that. Let me find the toes. So you can see there's a bunch of them here. Let's just go with the first one. So here I will create a new folder for the toe, tas actually. Oops. T2 te toe. And then I'll make this a 1. And this looks like it's about half width. Well, so this is where I always have to make a judgment call, because this could be 2 rectangles, right? This toe could be a rectangle and a rectangle. But if I did something like this and I made 2 rectangles, the 2 rectangles would touch each other in the middle. So that's not going to work. And I need to have a gap in the middle. But for certain, that's there. It's here. It's just a question of how far to bring it out. And we'll try in the middle. See how it looks. Then again, we need the spacing. I feel like this could work all right. And that should do. Yeah, I think that looks all right. So, and yeah, I know this is, maybe some of you are thinking, why are you doing this in Photoshop and not in Illustrator, where you could have a vector graphic and everything would look smooth? Because it's easier. I just like Photoshop. I like pixels and grids. It's easier for my brain to make content with. So that should do it. So now, if I go to a Word document here, make sure you can see this. Let me share it and bring up a new one here. Okay. And then I'll switch over. There we go. All right, so here's my draft of the Namekian language, which in Japanese is called Nameku Go. Go just means speech. It's the same word the Japanese use for the Japanese language, like Nihongo or Eigo, and other languages. So Nameku Go. And you can see some Japanese here and some English. Let's just try putting in some words or some glyphs. Now, these are images. So I first have to go to insert and then insert the image. Eventually, I would like to do a font. I think that'd be really exciting to have a font that everybody can, have and share with each other, and we can write things in Namekian. But one step at a time. And the first step is to get these glyphs in place. Well, first of all, figure out all the glyphs and then, create them as I'm doing here with you, and then, uh, put them into place as a language like we're doing here. So, okay. I'm just going to create a new line so it's a little bit easier to see. So this is Japanese, just moto moto. And then we've got our first Namekian glyph. Oh, sorry. Our first Namekian glyph in place. And then we'll insert the next one. And then we'll put in our first toe. So toe 1. Okay. Now, as I noted in the lecture portion of this video, those two mo's they change, and I think it's because of repetition. So mo 3 and mo 4 are different from each other, and I'm pretty sure I don't have the right toe, but it doesn't matter for right now. I mean, the toe that was actually used in that instance. So, okay. So there's moto moto in Namekian. Now, I've already seen a problem here, which is the spacing. You can see these glyphs. These two are bumping up against each other because the right edge of toe is right at the edge of the box, and the left edge of the second mo is right up against the left edge of the box, for that template. So it's a bit of an issue, but I think it can just be fixed with some additional margins around each glyph. And I might be able to do that in Word. Not certain. But I can certainly do it in InDesign when I actually format this text to be published. So I don't think that'll be a problem. Well, I don't know why these are all hidden, grayed out like that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's just try adding a space or something. Okay, that's fine. It looks like it kind of does in the manga anyway. In between each glyph, Toriyama adds a little bit of space, and that's how you can tell one glyph apart from the other. So let me take a look at my comments here. Lynn is asking, what is this and how will it raise your power level? That's always a good question to be asking. But yeah, as you noted, it is the language of Namek in text format. Hi, Shane. Yeah, good to see you. Thank you. So that's basically it. That's what I wanted to show you guys. There's a lot more to Namekian that I break down in this document, this chapter of the Dragon Ball language book, which will be coming out in early access edition within the next few months. I'm working really hard on it, and I think you guys are going to see some stuff you've never seen before and learn to appreciate Dragon Ball in a way that nobody's ever, even thought was possible. And just recognize how talented Toriyama is when it comes to linguistics. There's really a lot to it. It's so much that it might end up being 2 books or 3. And I don't know how it's going to work when I publish the ebook as one huge book, and then I have to break it down into 3 paperbacks. But anyway, it's going to be big. So Lynn is asking, the Namek grammar, is it closer to English or Japanese? It's closer to English. There's a lot of, I can show you an example. Let me see if I have it ready here. No, I'll just go and find it. Okay, so I don't know if that's the best one. Let's see. So I'm going to switch back to Photoshop. And then hide this. So here's, a picture of Piccolo screaming at Kami. And this it might not be the best example. It actually shows a lot of Japanese. But anyway, I mentioned earlier that Namekian reads left to right. And normally Japanese reads right to left and top to bottom. So, okay, here's a counterexample. So we can see here the announcer is speaking at the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai, and his Japanese is going from right, the top right, to the bottom left. So it goes from this character, E, so Itsutai, okay? And then it goes to the next line over, and then the next line over, and it keeps doing that until it's done. You reach the end of the sentence. And there's no exclamation points here, no question marks, no periods. Toriyama doesn't use periods. He doesn't use commas. He just puts space, like line breaks, anytime he wants to pause something, or he uses an ellipses, which, are really common. Of course, he loves exclamation points, but when he's speaking, when the characters are speaking Namekian, you get it from left to right, just like in English. And so you'll see these Namekian glyphs, and then these Japanese kanji, and the hiragana, another kanji, and then hiragana again, and then 3 exclamation points. Well, it's the same 3 exclamation points in the Namekian glyphs. And so that's how you can sort of figure out what these glyphs represent. Here he's screaming Kami, and you see it later. It's this upside down triangle in this like E-looking shape. And then this character is used to extend the sound a little bit. So he's like shouting it. And then here, this is Piccolo's name right here. This is Piccolo in Namekian. It appears later on. But in general, though, the grammar is, follows the English format and layout. Yeah, this might not have been the perfect example, but that's okay. Hopefully that answered your question. Shane wants to know, would the Saiyan and Frost demon languages be something in the near future? Yes, I have a section for the Saiyan languages, which, when they start out, it's like what we see in the Scouters, in the glass of the Scouters, which we then learn is, part of the Frieza Force. So there's some work to be done there to figure out what all of that is, and I haven't started it yet. I don't know how much I'll really be able to glean from those examples, because there's so few of them. There might be some examples of them, some writing throughout the forts, the castles or whatever, King Vegeta's room and things like that. Same thing for Yardratian, which we get a little bit of in the Dragon Ball Super manga. And then there's also an alien language in Dr. Slump, which predates Dragon Ball. that I'm gonna have to dig into just to sort of explore the precursor to Namekian and figure out what glyphs are found in both, if any, or what similarities there are and what we can learn from those. And you might be saying, like, well, what can we learn from any of this? Well, it's a rarity for a manga author to create their own language in a manga. Most people just write in Japanese and everybody speaks the same basic language. So for Toriyama to design his own language here in order, to make it distinct, really says a lot about him and the effort that he put into this, and his background as a graphic designer and somebody who understands typography, who really dug in to this task of creating a language that felt alien. And I feel like it's something that fans have been curious about for a long time. But Shueisha and Toei have never released anything about the Namekian language or any of the other languages like Yardratian in the series. And it doesn't make any sense. Like, fans want to know about these things, but they haven't given it to them in 30 years. It's like 30 plus years we're still waiting. And so that's what I've taken upon my shoulders to do, and it's thanks to you guys that I can do it. So thanks for supporting my work. I should have mentioned you can tip me for this video if you want, or just go buy my books or read some articles and manga on my site, whatever you want to do. The tips are at streamlabs.com/Derek Padula, all one word for my name there. Shane says, that is true. Literally, this franchise is the only time I've seen a manga writer write their own language. Literally, their Western counterpart is the Klingon to English dictionary here. And Lynn is saying, generating a language must have helped him focus his mind and work like a mnemonic trick to put himself back into clear perspective after a long break from the content. Yeah, I bet it was a nice change of pace. You're drawing characters and backgrounds all day, and well, he has one assistant who helped with backgrounds, but still, a tremendous amount of work illustrating, and articulating movement and everything else, to then switch from the nonverbal language of body kinetics to a verbal language, and to be able to build it yourself must have been a really creative outlet for him. And he loves details. He's always putting miniatures together, models from Star Wars and cars and World War II. And I bet he had fun. I bet he had a good time doing all this. And then, yeah, he'd be able to come back and keep drawing. So that's a nice thought to have. I don't have any evidence of, Toriyama saying this. I don't think there's any examples of him actually talking about the creative process behind Namekian. None that I've come across anyway. So we kind of just have to speculate and wonder what was going on in his mind when he created this. And I think, yeah, it's kind of like Shane said, it's kind of like creating a Klingon to English dictionary. We're just creating a Namekian to English dictionary. And you have to start with Japanese, just like Toriyama did, because that's the corollary here. I've seen fans create a Namekian to English alphabet, and they made a mistake, which was to create uppercase and lowercase. They just took all the glyphs that are in the manga, and then they just randomly associated each of those glyphs with an uppercase or a lowercase letter. But that doesn't make sense, because Toriyama was thinking of it from a Japanese perspective first, and there's no uppercase or lowercase in that language. And so one glyph cannot be, uppercase, and another glyph lowercase. It's the glyphs equate to sounds and meaning. And we don't know the sounds, So we have to go with the meaning, and the meaning is translated in Japanese. So the glyphs have a meaning in Japanese. It's basically how it works. So if you want to translate that then to English, you can, but first you have to translate the glyphs into Japanese, and then the Japanese into whatever other language you want. And so I think what I publish in Dragon Ball language will allow you to do that. But it's incomplete. Some of these things are just, we don't have examples of them. So like I'll show you here in the chart. We don't have any sounds for ho or hey. There are just no glyphs that correlate with those sounds. And what I mean by that is Toriyama never wrote hey or ho in Japanese in the speech bubbles. So we don't know what those sounds are or what those glyphs are, that represent these sounds in Japanese. Same thing with mu, yeah. So we've got this category of extra glyphs that I just couldn't make sense out of. And if I feel inclined, I might fill in some of the gaps with these extra glyphs, with the caveat that those glyphs could be replaced someday if later on we get more Dragon Ball Super manga, or who knows what in the years to come, where people are speaking Namekian and then they've got some hey and ho's and moos. We can just replace them. Or I can leave it blank and we just won't be able to speak those sounds and meanings. I'd like to actually hear what you guys have to say about that, because I haven't made a decision yet. I don't know if that would be crossing some line that's like, forbidden in terms of artistic integrity. It really comes, I think it'd be fun to have a complete language that we can write with. So, yes, in the anime, Lynn has said some of them do have sound, as we heard their speech in the conflict between Kami and Piccolo. Yes, the anime was tasked with having to give sound to these glyphs, and originally there was none. So how did they do that? Well, in the first example of it, where Kami was speaking with Piccolo, they actually reversed the sound of Japanese and then laid it on top of the original Japanese. So when you listen to it, they're speaking Japanese, but then they've reversed it at the same time. So it sounds like an alien language, but you can actually, if you speak Japanese, you just listen closely and you go, oh, they're just speaking Japanese in reverse. And they didn't do that ever again. In later instances of like Dende speaking, Namekian, they had him speak sounds that I haven't really dove into yet. So I will get to that, and that'll come later. Lynn is asking if I checked some of the content that Toriyama likes and used for inspiration for these unknown glyphs. He says, I get the feel it might be related to American science fiction, maybe Alien or Predator. I have not done that. I know that there are glyphs in Predator, like on his arm band. He's got those symbols that count down when he's setting off that explosion, that suicide blast at the end of the movie. There might be some people who have done, Predator like breakdowns or Alien breakdowns. That's a good idea. I will make a note to check those things out, because I haven't done that yet. But I have found some, corollaries with real world languages as well. Thanks for that idea, Ellen. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. And if you have any other questions about Namekian you want to learn, or there's something specific that you want to say, I'll do my best. Like I said, this is an incomplete language. really figuring this out for the first time, and I don't think anybody else, to my knowledge, has ever done this. So I'm learning as I go, and maybe if you give me a challenge, I can, learn faster by trying to meet that challenge. So, okay, that's it. I will see you guys later. I don't know when I'll be doing another one of these again, but soon, because I like chatting with you guys. So, okay, bye.